Hello everyone, and welcome to the 5th Google Hangout session of the Pixel Project's first ever International Women's Day edition for the Read for Pixels campaign. My name is Anusha Kandasivam. I'm the moderator for this session. Through Read for Pixels, the Pixel Project is collaborating with 13 award-winning best-selling authors to raise awareness about violence against women and to raise funds for our celebrity male role model Pixel Reveal campaign. The aim is to raise $1 million. These funds will be shared between the USA's National Coalition Against Domestic Violence and the Pixel Project so that we can keep up our efforts to end violence against women. Now, we have a really special treat today. We have international best-selling author Jane Green, whose books include Tempting Fate and Saving Grace. Hello, Jane.
Hello.
Thank you so much for being with us today.
Oh, thank you for asking me. I'm thrilled to be involved.
Jane is going to do a reading of Saving Grace in just a little bit, but first I have something to tell our viewers, which is that we have a huge stash of goodies that the authors have donated to us, and we are giving to you as perks for donors. And everything is listed at the Read for Pixels Indiegogo fundraising page. Jane herself has very generously donated some really cool stuff, and I myself am really excited about it. There is one 30-minute one-on-one Skype call with a fan or a book club where you can chat with Jane and ask her any questions about her books, about her writing process, about anything. And also a special package of signed books, which are a signed first edition of Tempting Fate, a signed first edition of Saving Grace, and a signed first edition of Family Pictures, like a special Jane Green omnibus. I'll be telling you how to get your hands on these goodies a little later in the session, so just stay on with us, and about how you can help the cause and donate. But meanwhile, if you want to find out more about what we're doing and about the Pixel Project, you can visit reveal.thepixelproject.net. So, okay, let's get on with it. Jane is now going to do a reading, and we'll have a little discussion and a Q&A session after that. You, the viewer, can get involved in the Q&A session. There are two ways you can do this. If you're watching this on Google Hangout, you just have to type your question into the Q&A box, which will appear on the right side of your screen in a bit. If you're watching this on YouTube, you can type your questions into the comment section, but you have to be logged on to Google in order to do this. Okay, so here we go back to Jane. Jane is going to read from Saving Grace, and maybe Jane, you could give a little intro before you start.
Yes, thank you, Anusha. Saving Grace is my latest book, and it is the story of Grace and Ted Chapman, who to all outsiders look as if they have the perfect marriage, but of course you scratch the surface and you find that things are not what they seem. And Ted has an incredibly bad temper, is very volatile, and Grace spends her life walking on eggshells. And in the end, she starts to feel as if she's going completely crazy. A series of things happen that really lead her to question everything about her life. And she realizes she has to make significant changes to get her life back, if in fact it's even a life that she wants. And so I'm going to read you from chapter 6. Their lovemaking was never filled with huge passion. Tried and tested, less passionate than well-worn, it had been satisfying, comfortable. Often it was quick, routine. Often they didn't kiss. It felt perfunctory, Grace acquiescing to fulfill her marital obligation, Ted initiating more because, it seemed to Grace, it was what he knew he was supposed to do, rather than because there existed a great passion between them. There had been desire in the beginning, but age, exhaustion, their busy lives made that seem a very long time ago. For years it had been more duty than fun. For years Grace had prayed for the sound of Ted's snoring long before she reached the final page. How different it was from what she expected as a young woman, convinced marriage was the beginning of a fairy tale. All those years ago, she walked across a country field to an arbor strewn with flowers, her eyes sparkling with hope and love and daydreams. She had visions of a perfect life, of endless romance, of finally being able to breathe now that she had found her life partner. There was nothing that had prepared her for real life, for real marriage, for the ups and downs, the times when you look at your spouse with something that feels very much like hatred, only for it to pass into numbness, then circle back around into deep connection and love. This morning, Grace looks into Ted's eyes and realizes she has once again come full circle. There are times when she finds him exhausting, exasperating, when her feelings for him run much closer to hate than to love, but it doesn't occur to her to leave. She made a vow, and the only thing of which she is absolutely certain is this too shall pass. It always does. The good, the bad, the ugly, the beautiful, it all passes. When she looks at him with disdain, finds fault with everything he does, she has learned to take deep breaths, to keep herself busy, to be more careful with how she spends her time, to do things that make her happy, bring her joy, things that remind her of the good in life. She will keep the focus on herself rather than look for someone to blame and wait for it to pass. It has passed. This morning, as they make love, slowly, mindfully, she looks into her husband's eyes and feels a thread of connection so strong she can almost see it. She loves him. She loves him. She has only ever loved him. These are the times when that's easy to believe.
Thank you, Zane. That was great.
Thank you.
I find there's this great you brought up a really good point about fairy tales versus reality in a marriage, and it somehow seems a little hopeless, Jane's situation. I suppose it does get like that after a while. What inspired you to write this kind of situation in your book?
Well, there were many different things, but I do think that we are so often brought up from when we are very, very small to believe in this romanticized version of what marriage should be, and actually we all go in, it becomes about the day and the dress and the ceremony and gathering the people we love, and after a while, even the best marriages, even marriages to the best people, become, well, if we're lucky, they just become pots and pans. It becomes part of life. If we're unlucky, we find ourselves married to people who treat us in ways that we might never have imagined when we walk down the aisle. But I think I very much believe that in so many cases life is cyclical. Everything moves in full circles and things do pass. And I think marriage is really hard, and I don't think anything really prepares us for how hard it is once the excitement has settled down, and particularly when children come into the equation and there's just the pots and pans of life.
Yeah, that's something I think a lot of young people don't realize as well.
Yeah.
Grace's husband, Ted, I did mention that he he can be considered abusive, at least emotionally abusive, because he loses his temper a lot and he scares Jane. Um, what inspired you to write that character, and what is your intention of including him in this story?
Well, you know, I have been witness to friends in these kinds of marriages, and I've long been fascinated by how we can go into a relationship feeling so strong and so self-sufficient and so independent and as if nothing can harm us, and that yet when you are married to a man who is, and in this instance, emotionally abusive, and certainly that was what I had witnessed, it can destroy you in just the same way as I think physical abuse can.
Mm.
And I think that that experience of walking on eggshells, which is what happens to women who are, when you're around somebody who's volatile, who has a temper, it can become incredibly frightening because it's the constant anticipation and not knowing what to expect, embracing yourself, a good mood or a bad mood. And
Yeah.
I really wanted to look at that. I wanted to look at this incredibly vibrant woman who had married for all the right reasons and thought her marriage was wonderful, and still in some ways does. I mean, it's still, you know, as the story progresses, however badly Ted treats her, there's a part of her that still loves him, and I think still believes that he doesn't mean it. He loves her, and in his own way, I think he does. I think that that's all he gets. That's how he expresses it. I'm also, stop me if I'm talking too much,
Yeah.
I'm also fascinated by how our childhoods continue to play out throughout our lives. And Grace, my character Grace, is somebody who had a mother who had bipolar disorder, and so was very used to the mood swings and the volatility and the experience of walking on eggshells. And I think so often we grow up in situations that are difficult um, or feel bad to us. And when we're young, we vow that we will never have a relationship like that. We will never do that to our children. We will never treat people like that. And yet, without some kind of significant therapeutic intervention, it's often very difficult to escape those ghosts, which is really where Grace found herself. And she married him because, in so many ways, because of her mother, she was used to being treated badly.
Yeah. Do you think that since it is quite difficult for a person, like you said, to recognize that they're in this kind of relationship and to get out of it, do you think then that a lot of support is very important?
Of support?
Yeah, support, like friends, family, listening to you, giving you good advice, saying like, look, if you want to leave, we will support you. If you want to stay, then you have to change things.
I think support generally with anything in life is important. I know we we were talking a little bit earlier, and it was pointed out, and I know this to be true, that one of the things that abusers do is they isolate women from their friends and family, which allows it to continue. And I think even if you are still in someone's life, at the end of the day, I think we all have our own journeys to make, and however good your family's intentions or your friends, you can't listen or make that change until you are ready to make that change. So I think it's the way you support is important. I think being a loving witness is always the thing to do, rather than directing or giving advice, because I think sometimes that can backfire.
Yeah, it can. um, Now, the back to the character of Grace. She is in. She and her husband are. They have this outside to the world. This really wonderful marriage, and they're successful, and they're wonderful people. But there's all these things boiling underneath. This is quite a normal phenomenon. People don't usually think that a successful person like her could have such problems in her marriage. Do you think that's a problem in society?
I think that with the advent of social media,
Mm-hmm.
we have all become adept at presenting a version of our lives that we want people to see. And even when we're doing it ourselves, even when we're only posting up the glossiest photographs and the best selfies, we still believe, when we see other people doing the same, we still somehow believe that their lives are better than ours, or as perfect as they want us to believe.
Yeah.
And I think that I can't remember what your question is. I can't remember what the question is.
The question is basically I was saying that people don't realize that this kind of
Yes,
tolerance abuse can go on underneath the
got
surface,
it,
even though it
got
looks
it.
really big
Yes,
and tough.
I think that none of us ever know what goes on behind closed
Mm-hmm.
doors, and certainly I continue to be amazed at stories I hear about, some families that look as if they have the perfect life, and suddenly you discover that there is abuse or infidelity or some kind of terrible behavior. We never ever, that was the point. The point is we never know. We can look at all of our neighbours and presume all kinds of things about them, but we just don't know what goes on.
Yeah. Um, as you mentioned that you have experience in observing these relationships as a friend. What would you say a friend should do in this kind of situations when they see this kind of thing happening?
Well,
Yeah,
I'm
it's a
not
loaded question, I know.
I'm not an expert. I know with one friend I became very involved, but
Mhm.
my involvement was very much about supporting her and making sure that she got the right resources to help her and her children.
Mhm.
And I also think that as women, we often feel the need to dive in and help people who are in crisis, and
Yeah.
it's not always the right thing to do. I think to be there with practical things and to put people in touch with resources, with organizations who really are used to this, who know what to do in these situations is better than diving into the drama by yourself without any of this knowledge.
Yeah. Um, like you're talking about relationships between women, basically. You and your friends are women. So, and I noticed that in your stories you do portray a range of relationships between men and women, children, good and bad relationships. Do you think it's important to show this range as a storyteller, and especially show positive relationships between women, not just men and women?
What I'm trying to do most of all in my books is to reflect life. I'm
Mm-hmm.
trying to write books about real women and the lives that they lead with an emotional honesty. I want women to resonate with my stories, even if they haven't been through what I'm writing about. I want them to feel as if they could imagine what it's like.
Mm-hmm.
And and so what I'm trying to do is reflect, and I'm reflecting everything that I see around me. And so yes, relationships with everyone. I mean, I think that we're here because of our connections with people. The important thing in life is making those real connections with people. It's something that we are designed to do. And and so absolutely that's what I'm trying to do.
Okay, that's great. Which brings us to before I ask my next question, actually, I just want to tell the audience that the Q&A app is open. So if you have any questions, you can type it in there. Hopefully, we get some good ones. Okay, so on to my next question is writing about a range of real people. Um, your your stories usually have main female character who goes through so much but comes out as a better person and goes through this journey. And it seems to me that chick lit or romance has kind of moved away from the damsel in distress to a female protagonist who goes out and gets what she wants, and even though she goes through a lot. Um, do you think why do you think this phenomenon has taken place? This kind of change. Is there more demand from the audience for women like strong women characters?
Well, I think, I started off writing. My first book was almost 20 years ago, and it was at the beginning of this movement that they call chick lit, which is literature for chicks. And I don't think I'm really writing that anymore. Just as a mother in my late 40s, I think I've graduated out of chick lit. But I do think the women in the last 20 years, if I think about the books that I read and the books that I love and how the female protagonists have changed, I absolutely do believe that they've changed, and they are no longer damsels in distress, which is, again, we talked about reflection. It's a reflection of society. I think as women's role in society has changed, the books, literature has had to reflect that.
Yeah. Okay. Now, women's role in society has changed quite a lot, but do you think there's still a ways to go? It's not all equal yet, is it?
You're going to have to repeat that question because you dropped out at the beginning. I'm sorry.
Sorry, it's okay. My question was, you were saying that women's roles in society have changed, but do you still think there's a ways to go? It's still not all equal, right?
I think there's a tremendous ways to go. And in fact, I was just reading, this week, yet another story about women and men working in the same positions, and the women's salary is so much less, than the men. So yeah, there's clearly a huge amount of work to be done. I'm a huge fan of Hillary Clinton, I have to say. I think she's an incredibly strong candidate, and I would love to have a female president. Because even though I sound British, I am now an American. I'm a naturalized American. I live here, and I have these American kids, but even so, I mean, even if we were to have a female president, it's like Barack Obama. It's a little tiny step in the right direction, but there's a lot more work to be done.
Yeah. Do you think then that it's very important for young people especially to have good female role models, not just in real life like Hillary Clinton, but in the books that they read, characters that they can look up to and who can kind of guide them into how to treat people, how they should be treated?
Well, I don't know that I would specify female role models. I think just good role models who absolutely, mentors, role models. I mean, we learn best by observing rather than by being told. So certainly watching and observing and reading about people who are doing the right thing and living their lives with their humanity first would be a good thing.
All right. Seems that we haven't got any questions yet, so I'll just continue asking you questions. What's my next thing? We've been talking about relationships and basically violence against women, which is what domestic abuse is. It seems something to be quite close to your heart. Why? Can you tell us why you are supporting the Pixel Project and this campaign?
Well, I mean, as a woman myself, and having, as I said earlier, having witnessed a couple of friends in abusive relationships, it's I think so often we don't know what a healthy relationship is. We don't know what to look for. I mean, honestly, I didn't know what to look for, and I consider myself enormously blessed in being married for the second time, and this time having an incredibly loving and supportive and healthy functional partnership.
Yeah.
And that wasn't particularly modeled for me growing up, and I didn't really know. And I think I'm very lucky in that I read a tremendous amount, and I'm really interested in learning and in finding a path to, I would say, peacefulness rather than happiness, and have done a lot of work on myself to try and get there. And when I look around me, I see so many people struggling with this and struggling with knowing what a healthy relationship looks like or feels like. That I'm trying very hard in my books to model something that I've now been lucky enough to experience, and I would love to think that somebody somewhere might read it and might perhaps question something that they're in, a situation that they're in.
So, do you think then that not just books but pop culture, what you see on TV and films, music, has a really big influence on young people and how they perceive relationships should be? And is that good or bad?
Well, I think it can probably be both. I mean, yes, I think it has a tremendous influence and can go either way.
Yeah, there is a lot of things out there right now. Like, I'm going to be general and say, for example, rap music, which can tend towards the misogynistic, and films which portray, women in, well, not, I wouldn't say like as weak, but basically the woman's just there to, move the story along for the man, that kind of thing. What do you feel about that? Do you feel that's something we should change?
Well, I think just as you said, there are these books and these films, but there are also incredibly strong female role models. There's somebody like Lena Dunham who is a hugely talented writer and producer and creator, and who is a strong woman, writing about strong women, writing for strong women, and just celebrated for that. So I think that there are plenty of people reversing any negativity that we see.
Yeah, okay. We do have one question from Regina, and she asks, do you consider yourself a feminist? If so, what would you say to young women who publicly disavow feminism despite enjoying the rights that have been hard-won by feminism over the last century or more?
As somebody who was born in the '60s, I'm not sure that anybody my generation could consider them anything other than a feminist, and yet it's not something that I think we actively think about. I would never describe myself as a feminist, because it isn't a political statement for me. It's just something that I've grown up with and something that I believe, and I believe in equality, and the rights of women, and I don't know that I've come across anybody who would describe themselves as anti-feminism. I'd have to think about it. I don't have an answer for that because it just has not been my experience.
Yeah, I think what happens is a lot of people get the kind of a wrong impression that a feminist is a man hater, but actually what a feminist really is somebody who just wants equal rights. So I think that's where this anti-feminist thing comes in. Okay, we have another question. The question is, you've tackled emotional abuse in Saving Grace. It's a very tricky subject to take on. What advice would you give to authors who wish to also include domestic or dating violence in their stories?
What advice would I give to authors?
Yeah.
Well, I can only speak from my own experience, and that's that, as I said earlier, I'm trying to have an emotional resonance in my stories, and so I do. My research it's some reading, and it's a lot of talking to people, and I think that's that. If you want to get something right, you need to do enough research so you can fully empathize and really understand. And that's whatever you're writing about, whatever your subject is, unless it's something that you've been through personally. And honestly, even if you have lived through something personally that you're writing about, your experience may not be the same as everybody else's. I think it's a mistake that we so often make. Part of just being human, we presume that because we feel a certain way about something, everybody else is feeling the same way. So just do your research, talk to people.
Yeah, it is quite it's a bit difficult sometimes for authors to write a character that is basically a negative character that does horrible things without making it sound like they themselves are horrible. Like the author themselves believes this what he's writing.
Well, I think, and that's always the challenge with writing is you can write about people who do terrible things without necessarily making them terrible people. I mean, I'm really interested in the flaws and the mistakes we make and why we do the things we do. And I think the trick as an author is writing people who do terrible things, but for whom you can still feel some kind of compassion.
Yeah, and I suppose that's a trick of writing is that not everybody is black and white. There is a whole range of things that make people real. So they may be terrible in some ways, but there is something that you can sympathize with or empathize with.
Yes, I think that's very. Yeah.
Okay. Last few questions, I think. We've been talking a lot about women and support by women and everything, but do you also feel that men have a sort of a responsibility when it comes to treating women respectfully, and they have a big role to play in ending violence against women?
I do, and I think that we, certainly in this country, in America, I think we spent an awful lot of time raising our daughters and talking to our daughters about going out into the world and how to keep themselves safe and what to do. But I see less focus on our sons, and I think that's changing. I think particularly with the assaults that we've seen recently on campuses and in fraternities, I think the conversation is moving more and more towards teaching our sons when they are young how to be respectful to women.
But it's a really great step, I think, but it will take a while, won't it?
Yeah, everything does, unfortunately. Everything does.
Okay, we're almost done with time. I think maybe one last question. Who would do you have a male role model that you can look up to and see as somebody who treats women right and treats men right and basically a great male person?
Well, I have to say that somebody who comes to mind, and it may not be an expected answer, but I live in a town called Westport, Connecticut, and living in my town for many, many years was Paul Newman, the actor. And he actually was an extraordinary man because he was this huge Hollywood celebrity. But when he was at home in Westport, Connecticut, he wasn't a Hollywood celebrity at all. He was a husband and a father and a friend. And he also started a camp for children with life-threatening diseases called Whole Living Gang Camp. And just the altruism that he showed and the selflessness and the true his charitable nature was extraordinary. So I have to say he has always been a role model of mine.
It's so great. Actually, we just got another question, so I'm just gonna ask you. Do you get letters from your readers telling you about their own experiences surviving abuse and violence?
Not letters so much as comments. I'm very active on Facebook. I have this, my public Facebook page, and I'm very active. I post a lot, and when Saving Grace came out, I did receive a number of messages, not in particular detail, but women saying it was hard to read because I had been there, but it was helpful.
That's great. I suppose, how did that make you feel then, as an author, that somebody,
Well, it makes me feel privileged, mostly, actually. Privileged to have touched somebody in a way where they would feel, the inclination to put pen to paper and write to me, or fingers to I feel it's a tremendous privilege. Anytime that anybody talks to me about how my books have touched them or changed their lives or made them think differently in any way, is just, it feels like it's a gift.
Does that keep you, make you keep wanting to write more?
I can't imagine not writing. I can't imagine. I always seem to have stories to tell.
So do you ever experience writer's block? How do you get over it?
Yes, always, with every book, many times. And what I found is that the only way to break writer's block is to keep writing, even when you have nothing to say, and even when you think you've run out and you absolutely can't do it. The only way to break it is to start writing anyway. And what happens is, even in the beginning, if it's really slow, it feels like you can't do it, but you write a few words and then a few more, and it feels like you're squeezing blood from a stone, and suddenly something will come and you think, oh, and it may only be a sentence, it may be a paragraph, but then it gets hard again, but then something else will come, and before you know it, the words are flowing again. And so the only way to unlock the creativity is to write through it. And I also think that it's a first draft. Your only goal at the beginning is to get a first draft on the page, and then then the work begins.
Can you tell us a little bit about your writing process? Do you start from the beginning and write all the way to the end and then go back and edit, or do you have little scenes that you do, or how does that work?
I'm very linear. I do indeed start at the beginning and I keep going until I reach the end. And I know other people do it differently. Other people I know have storyboards and visuals, like jumping in and out and doing scenes, but I can't do that. I need to get to know my characters, and I need to walk with them on their journey, because I don't even know where they're going to end up. I may think I know, I may have a story mapped out, but if I've done my characterizations correctly, they will often take the story in a completely different direction to the one I'd planned for them.
Do you ever get emotionally attached to any of the writers and feel for them and things happen to them?
To writers or to my characters?
To your characters.
Oh, to my characters. Do I get emotionally attached? Not always, but sometimes, and particularly in the books that have ensemble casts, if you like the Beach House had a group of people in a house, and years ago I wrote a book called Bookends that had a group of people who'd met at university, and it followed them into their 30s, and in both those books I felt like I was writing about my friends. These characters became so real for me. I felt almost bereft when I finished writing the book.
Would you ever consider going back and revisiting some of your characters from before?
Well, I've just finished a short story, and it was about Jemima Jones, and Jemima J was a book that I wrote many years ago that people always asked me about, and I often think about revisiting Jemima, and this is my little kind of dipping a toe in the water to see how it feels.
Okay. We have another question from the audience. Okay. How do you think authors can help stop violence against women through their work? Some authors talk about telling the right story.
I mean, yes, I like the sound of telling the right story. Um, but I'm writing books for authors like me. I write commercial fiction.
Mm.
I'm writing for women, and I think the fundamental change it has to be with men.
Mm.
And so I can only ever hope to influence, one half. But I hope I can. I hope I'm writing about strong women. Sometimes I'm writing about strong women who lose themselves,
Yeah.
um, or who feel like they have disappeared. Um, and I think if I hope that if somebody reads that who's in that situation, perhaps that there is another way. Sometimes I do believe that literature can change us. It doesn't have to be great literature. I think that often we can watch a film or a television show or
Yeah.
pick up a novel, or if we see ourselves reflected in it, I think it can absolutely influence the decisions we make.
Yeah. Which brings us back again to men as role models and men doing their bit to,
Right.
end this whole thing. Um, okay, I think we're kind of running out of time, so I'm just gonna wrap up.
Oh, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much for being with us, Jane. It was a really good discussion that we had, I think.
Yes,
Um,
I enjoyed it.
okay, so I'm just gonna tell our viewers about the author goodies that we're giving away. I promised to tell them how they can get their hands on it. Okay, so first, let me recap. Jane has donated really awesome stuff to the pile of perks that donors will get. It includes a 30-minute one-on-one Skype call with a fan or book club, and a special package of signed books, which are a signed first edition of Tempting Fate, signed first edition of Saving Grace, and a signed first edition of Family Pictures. It'd be a great gift to give to somebody, or you can add a great addition to your collection of Jane Green books. Okay, so how do you get your hands on it? So here we go. Let me see if I can share this link with you. There you go. Um,
There it
yeah,
is.
yeah. So all you have to do is donate at is.gd/r4p Indiegogo. And all the goodies are listed there. You can just pick what you want, and you find Jane's goodies there, and donate the amount needed, and you can get your hands on it. If you don't have PayPal, if you don't have a credit card, you only have PayPal, you can go to is.gd/r4p Razu IWD. The link is there. You can get a set of exclusive Read for Pixels wallpapers for your laptop, tablet, smartphone. And so there's so many ways that you can give, and all funds go towards the Pixel Project Celebrity Male Role Model Pixel Reveal campaign to help end violence against women. If you want to learn more about what we're doing and learn more about the Read for Pixel sessions with all the other authors that are coming up, go to is.gd/read for pixel. Okay, so that's it. Now, all that remains for me to say is thank you so very much, Jane, for giving us your time.
Thank you, Anusha.
And thank you to our viewers for watching and contributing. And so that's it. Well, if you want to find out more about violence against women, about the Celebrity Male Role Model Pixel Reveal campaign, you can go to reveal.thepixelproject.net. And thank you. Good night, good day, wherever you are in the world. I hope to see you again soon. Bye-bye. Say goodbye, Jane.
Bye.